Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 1 of the series. Chapter 1. When He Jing transmigrated, she was still dancing on the grave of her vicious stepmother. The stepsister who had stolen her fiancé was afraid that her dirty deeds would be exposed, so she did not even dare to breathe loudly. Then, a bolt of lightning struck down. When she opened her eyes again, she heard a fierce argument. The woman's voice was cold outside the door. Anyways, Xiao Yi is disgusted by her, so we have to send her back. After all, Jingjing is the daughter we raised for many years. Even if we carried the wrong child, we should treat her better. Look, Jingjing even tried to commit suicide. Our Qing family is so rich. It's not like we can't afford to take care of Jingjing. The men sounded helpless. I don't care. Once she's saved, we'll send her back to her lousy He family. Think about how our Xiao Yi has been living all these years. The woman refused to take a step back and spoke aggressively. The two of them did not notice that the person on the bed in the open ward had already undergone a soul exchange, and the electrocardiogram had miraculously started to bounce again. The woman on the bed opened her eyes weakly. Her long eyelashes trembled, but her eyes filled with shock. She was actually alive again. She thought inwardly, what the hell was this? Then, a jumble of disorganized information flooded her mind. He Jing was speechless. Who could tell her if this was real? She, the fair, beautiful, rich, cool, proud, awesome, He Jing, had actually transmigrated into a novel about the counterattack of a rich family's daughter. It was about a pitiful female protagonist who was mistakenly raised as a wealthy young lady, only to be found at the age of 18. Then she would gain incredible powers, make the male lead hers, seduce the second male lead, and have 800 male characters fall madly in love with her, crashing into walls for her sake. And she was the cannon fodder supporting actress in the book who had restored her identity as a poor girl and refused to leave. She was the fake wealthy heiress, He Jing. To avoid being chased out of the Qing family, she staged a suicide attempt and shamelessly clung to the wealthy family. Not only did she not act humble and cautious as a guest, but she also constantly provoked the female lead, Cheng Yi. In the end, she successfully courted death. She went from being a proud and arrogant young lady to a scheming woman who was disliked by everyone and even got hit by a truck and her head fell off. He Jing felt a bit nauseous. How did she become this kind of character after transmigrating? Was this appropriate? It was just a case of mistaken identity. Her adoptive parents didn't want her, so she could just go back. She insisted to fight for something that didn't belong to her. Look, karma had caught up to her. At this moment, the men and woman outside the ward were still arguing. They were undoubtedly her adoptive parents, Cheng Yu and Yi Shuping. Their voices were thunderous. If it were anyone else, the nurse would have come over to stop them and chase them away. However, this hospital was funded by the Qing family, and she was now on the top floor. The top floor ward was only for the Qing family. Is Xiao Yi your biological daughter or is Qing Jing your biological daughter? We haven't treated Qing Jing badly all these years, right? Look at how the He family treated Xiao Yi. They actually made her drop out of school to work and support the 7 brothers. Those 7 men have hands and feet. Are they worthy of letting my precious daughter work and support their education? The He family favors boys over girls and abuses Xiao Yi. I'm already being lenient by not holding them accountable. Keeping her at the He family, don't you find it outrageous? Cheng Yu, we've been married for so many years. I'm telling you today, either Cheng Jing dies or I, Yi Shuping, live. Cheng Yu felt overwhelmed. Looking at his wife's unreasonable behavior, he didn't know what to say. It was true that the He family had mistreated Xiao Yi, but Jingjing was also innocent. She had lived with the Qing family for so many years and knew nothing. Other than being a little rough and arrogant, she was really warm-hearted. Just as the two of them were locked in a heated argument, the door of the ward was suddenly opened. A weak and sickly girl with a bandage on her forehead was seen. She was wearing a larger hospital gown and her eyes were very calm. She said, "I'll go. I'm discharged today. I'll go back tomorrow." Chapter 2. This shocked Cheng Yu and Yi Shuping. Just a moment ago, she was adamant about staying, and now. Cheng Yu's face was full of disapproval when he heard this. He thought that she was throwing a tantrum. Don't cause trouble now. Where can you go back like this? However, Yi Shuping was delighted. She changed her cold attitude from before and went forward to hold her hand as she said, Jingjing, don't blame me. It's not that I can't tolerate you. It's just that Xiao Yi has suffered too much. I really can't bear to see her being wronged. Let Xiao Yi stabilize her emotions for a while, and then I'll bring you back. Of course, it was a lie. Yi Shuping couldn't wait for He Jing to return to the He family and never come back. She was afraid that He Jing would change her mind and refuse to return, so she wanted to lure her back to the He family first. Once that happened, they would change the locks, and what relationship could a poor girl have with the Qing family? He Jing knew that Yi Shuping was up to no good because she had seen this expression many times. She withdrew her hand from Yi Shuping's grip and said coldly, Since I'm a part of the He family, I can't call you mother anymore. Aunt Cheng, thank you for taking care of me for so many years. I understand how you feel. I'll return to the He family tomorrow. Really? Yi Shuping was so excited that she raised her volume by several degrees. He Jing nodded. Of course, it's true. I'm not a member of the Qing family. I won't stay at the Qing family. Please call me He Jing from now on, Auntie. Yi Shuping was overjoyed. She glanced at Cheng Yu and smiled as she said, Jingjing is still sensible. Cheng Yu, did you see it? I didn't force her to do this. Jingjing wanted to leave. Cheng Yu remained silent. He secretly blamed He Jing for being impulsive. Once she returned to the He family, she would have to drop out of school to support her 7 brothers. Little did he know that this was exactly what He Jing was pursuing. How could they have thought that her 7 brothers would all become big shots in the future? They were second to none in their fields and had a transcendent status. Even the Qing family would not be able to compare even 1% of their achievements. This was the true, golden finger, of a counterattacking wealthy heiress. It was the kind that was extremely thick. Because the fake daughter, He Jing, refused to return to the He family and even courted death, the 7 brothers had always treated Qing Yi, who was not blood-related, as their biological sister. They were thrilled when she returned to the Qing family because she could finally escape her hardships and live a good life. In a few years, they rose one after another. After they made their achievements, they collectively stood up to support Qing Yi. If Qing Yi made a mistake, they helped smooth things out. Whatever gift Qing Yi wanted, it would be airlifted the next day. In short, with 7 brothers, Qing Yi's happiness knew no bounds. With these 7 brothers, why would she still be afraid of having a hard time in the future? She had to go back to that family. That afternoon, He Jing underwent her discharge procedure and boarded the car home. Worried that she might change her mind halfway, Yi Shuping sent a car and 2 bodyguards to escort her back to the He family. Before she left, the bodyguard gave her a bank card, which was obviously instructed by Cheng Yu. He Jing refused, Tell Uncle Qing that I appreciate his kindness. I appreciate it. The bodyguard expressionlessly kept the bank card. He Jing turned around and looked at the rundown and cramped shanty house with the word demolish all around. The corners of her mouth twitched. She couldn't help but think that it was too dilapidated. The walls were black and the corners were corroded. It was actually still habitable. No wonder the fake wealthy heiress refused to come back. From being extravagant to being frugal, the difference was not just ordinary. No matter how hard it was before she transmigrated, it would not be to this extent. Chapter 3. Then, He Jing saw a pair of eyes through the old window covered by the tattered curtains. They were eager, timid, and a little cautious. After a brief moment of eye contact, the owner of the eyes immediately retreated as if shyly hiding away. He Jing thought for a moment, entered the corridor, and rang the corresponding doorbell. Unfortunately, the doorbell was broken. He Jing pressed the button with one finger and it wouldn't come up. She could only knock on the door again and say, Is anyone there? I'm He Jing. After a long time, the door opened a crack. The child who had been leaning against the window peeked out and looked at her, then slowly opened the door. The dim, damp, and cramped house instantly entered He Jing's eyes. A few people were standing in the living room, which was less than 20 square meters. Their faces looked obscure under the dim light of the bulb, and their eyes were deep and black. He Jing didn't expect to light up the house during the day. She took a look and saw that there was only one window in the house, and the window was facing the wall. Who would be so wicked to have a window like this? Even the ventilation was a problem. He Jing cursed in her heart, but she didn't show it. Instead, she smiled sweetly at the people in the room and greeted them. "Hi, I'm back." Everyone in the room looked at her and was dumbfounded by her beautiful smile. They had long been informed that He Jing was going to be sent back. They had even heard that He Jing had been reluctant to come back and seek death. They expected her to have a bitter expression when she saw them, but they did not expect her to be unexpectedly sweet and passionate. They scrutinized He Jing from top to bottom. Her expensive and beautiful flouncy dress, every pearl shining radiantly, her white and shiny leather shoes immaculate. Her slightly curled chestnut-colored hair cascaded over her shoulders, resembling a chocolate egg roll, and her fair and delicate face was breathtakingly beautiful, like an angel who had accidentally fallen into the mortal world. Was she really related to them, with the surname He? While they were sizing up He Jing was also sizing them up. With the help of natural light, she sized them up from tallest to shortest. She saw that their appearances were 70% similar, but each of them had a different temperament. The brothers had different expressions. Some were aloof, some were delighted, some were longing, some were afraid. Among them, her eldest brother, He Yuan, seemed the most composed. He had a very handsome face and looked mature and steady. He was only 22 years old this year, but he had already earned himself a place in a prestigious university through hard work. He supported himself with scholarships every year. He was about to graduate soon. In the future, he would become the CEO of a listed company. He would master advanced technology and monopolize the entire industry. It could be said that he was destined for greatness. He Jing smiled and greeted, "Hello, big brother." He Yuan looked at her calmly, "Welcome back." His attitude was not particularly enthusiastic. He Jing then looked at her second brother, He Ning. He had short, soft black hair, a high nose bridge, double eyelids, and long eyelashes. He had a classic first love appearance. He was clean and tall, and his handsomeness was overwhelming. Her second brother, He Ning, had an outstanding academic performance, and he was considered the campus heartthrob. He excelled in basketball and was extremely cool. He was discovered by a talent scout before he graduated and entered the entertainment industry. He became the most popular male idol in the entertainment industry. His fans screamed to have children for him and jumped off a building for him. At the same time, he was also the second male lead in the book. After finding out that he had no blood relation with Cheng Yi, he erupted with astonishing affection and passionately pursued Cheng Yi. Well, she had to think of a way to steer him back on track. False orthopedics couldn't prevail in the radiance of socialism. Chapter 4. He Jing greeted him obediently, "Hello, second brother." He Ning snorted coldly and turned his head away. He looked at her coldly and didn't care about her. He Jing then looked at the boy standing next to He Ning. He had an expression that of, "I'm the most arrogant, I'm the most rebellious." He looked very unruly. The eldest brother, He Yuan, introduced, "This is the fourth brother. His name is He Sui. The third brother, fifth brother, and sixth brother have gone to visit my auntie." He Jing revealed a sweet smile. "Hello, fourth brother." He Sui rolled his eyes and snorted. The youngest, He Xiaogua, who was also her younger brother, did not need any introduction at all because he himself took a timid step forward. His eyes were filled with desire. Hello, new sister." He Jing was pleasantly surprised. She didn't expect He Xiaogua to be the most likable among her brothers. She crouched down and looked at the little boy in front of her. She smiled and said, "Hello, Xiaogua." As if he had seen a human trafficker, fourth brother immediately pulled He Xiaogua behind him. In the end, He Jing turned to her silent father and mother, went over, and gave them a big hug as she called out, "Dad, Mom." Tears welled up in her father's and mother's eyes. They had originally thought that their daughter, who had lived in a wealthy family, would not want to acknowledge them. They did not expect her to really come back and be willing to live a hard life with them. They hurriedly called their eldest son, He Yuan, to bring He Jing to rest. He Yuan did as he was told and brought He Jing to Cheng Yi's room. Although the He family was poor, it seemed that they did not mistreat their only daughter because there were only 2 rooms in total. Cheng Yi occupied one room alone, and the other room was squeezed by 7 brothers. Surprisingly, her father and mother actually slept in the living room. This was completely different from what Jing had imagined. The book had vividly described her father and mother forced Cheng Yi to drop out of school and work to support her 7 brothers' education. When she first transmigrated, Yi Shuping said the same thing. But if the He family really favored boys over girls, would they give Cheng Yi such a precious room all to herself? It was obviously impossible. Moreover, Cheng Yi's belongings had not been taken away. There was a pile of bottles and cans of skincare products on the messy dressing table. These skincare products were all cheap and unknown brands, but they were undoubtedly a considerable burden for the poor Yi family. After taking in all of this, He Jing had a feeling in her heart. He Yuan then said, "The He family can't compare to the Qing family. The rooms are small and run down. You'll have to manage with what you have. If there are any conflicts in our living habits, we can adapt to you and make corresponding adjustments. Even though there are many men in the family, we won't casually enter your room. We'll also be careful not to disturb you when you're showering. Usually, Xiao Yi's shower time is between 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll stay in the room to study and won't come out." Because the house was too small, the overall sound insulation was poor. The movements in the bathroom could be heard clearly in the living room. He Jing could already imagine how hard they had tried to restrain themselves in order to take care of Cheng Yi. He Yuan continued, "The few of us in Xiaoguo all take about 15 minutes to shower and wash up. Dad and Mom have formed a habit of showering as soon as they get off work. The bathroom from 7 to 8 o'clock is theirs. This can't be changed. Do you think you can accept it?" He Jing said calmly, "Yes. Big brother, if you don't mind, send me a copy of the family schedule. I'll follow it from now on." He Yuan glanced at her and frowned slightly. "Have you really decided to stay in the He family?" He wondered if she might change her mind and run back to the Qing family. He Jing laughed. "Of course. My surname is He, not Cheng. I hope Big Brother will truly treat me as a younger sister in the future." Chapter 5. He Yuan's cold expression finally softened. He looked at He Jing with warmth in his eyes and said, "All right, I'll be careful." He Jing continued, "Also, I didn't bring anything back from the Qing family. If it's clothes, I don't want to wear Cheng Yi's. Could you do me a favor and buy a few outfits for me, Big Brother? This is what I should do." Hence, He Yuan left the room and considerately closed the door for her. He Jing stayed alone in the small bedroom. She did not sleep but wandered around casually. The bedsheet was newly changed, though washed until it was white, it still had a sun-dried scent. The peeling bedside table was free of dust. Many of the skincare products on the dressing table were used up and empty bottles were left behind. A few cheap stickers were stuck on the table with words like "Keep Going" written on them. It seemed that Cheng Yi had followed the same path as Lu Xiaokui in the He family. There were 2 large boxes of things in the cardboard box next to the dressing table. When she opened them, they were all cheap gifts. There were plush toys and plastic Barbies. He Jing's eyes welled up when she saw them. Although she did not have to worry about food and clothing before she transmigrated, no one had ever given her such things. A feeling of envy rose faintly. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly heard very low and hushed conversations from outside the room. Obviously, someone was trying to avoid someone else, but because the house was too small, they couldn't avoid being heard clearly by Yi Jing. "Our family is so poor that we can barely make ends meet. Big Brother pays his own tuition fee through hard work. Xiao Ning's grades are so outstanding, so he definitely can't drop out of school. Let's talk to Xiao Jing about this. After all, we are all family." "No, it's too soon after Xiao Jing's return. If we talk to her about this, won't it hurt her feelings? Let's think of another solution, so we won't bother her. Mom, let's think of another way. At most, I'll go out and find a part-time job." "Xiao Yuan, you're already busy enough. How are you going to find a part-time job? It's my uselessness and can't afford to raise you guys. Who would have thought that she would give birth to quintuplets in one go?" Other than the eldest brother, He Yuan, the 2nd to 6th brothers were all born at the same time. Originally, they had hoped for a daughter, so they gritted their teeth and gave birth to Yi Jing. However, they didn't expect that after taking contraceptive measures, they still got pregnant by accident and gave birth to their youngest child, He Xiaogua. Amidst the babble of voices, a clear and cold voice rang out. It was He Ning. Enough, I'm not going to school anymore. I go to work. He was scolded by their father, don't talk nonsense. What future is there in working? But then, the door banged, and someone left the house. The entire living room fell into silence as if it had entered winter. Unable to bear it, He Jing opened the door and walked out. She saw her parents and 3 brothers looking at her in unison. They were miserable and worried. Then, she heard the 4th brother, He Sui, said sarcastically, if Xiao Yi was still here, there wouldn't be so many problems. The eldest brother, He Yuan, immediately stopped him with a stern shout, Xiao Sui, watch your words. The current situation was not something that Cheng Yi could solve with her presence. Poverty was a long-term disaster for the family. Whoever joined would only be unfortunate. However, He Sui was not convinced. He mumbled, that's true. We've already agreed with Xiao Yi. As long as she drops out of school for a year and wait for you to graduate and work, we would send her to a better high school. But now we have an idle person in the family, studying in an elite school. We are so poor, how can we afford it? He Yuan's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. He actually had no way to refute his words. Suddenly, He Jing let out a puffed laugh. Her beautiful eyes curved, and they were as black as grapes. This laugh made He Sui angry, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His eyes spewed fire as he said angrily, what are you laughing at? Chapter 6. He Jing's soft voice was full of a young girl's coquettish naivety, with a hint of playfulness and complaint in her tone. She said slowly, 4th brother, you're so funny. He Sui felt like he was being ridiculed and his attitude became sharper. I'm not your 4th brother. I only have Xiao Yi as a sister. He Jing raised her eyebrows and said with a little grievance, all right, then. 4th brother, allow me to ask, who made the decision to let Cheng Yi drop out of school? Of course, it was a decision made by the whole family. Among the 8 children, 7 boys were all outstanding. Only Cheng Yi had poor grades and attended an expensive 3rd-rate high school. It could be said that she was the biggest burden for the whole family. Even though He Sui never felt that she was a burden. What does this have to do with you? Anyways, Xiao Yi is 1,000 times better than you. He Jing smiled lightly and said, actually, I know it even if you don't say it. This was a decision made by our parents after discussion. It's because Cheng Yi's academic performance wasn't good, right? In the living room, their father and mother were suddenly called out. They couldn't help but look at each other in bewilderment. He Jing was right. This was what they had decided after discussion. Although their 7 sons doted on Cheng Yi and didn't want her to drop out of school, in their hearts, their sons and daughters were all flesh and blood of theirs. They could not be biased towards any one of them. Therefore, they decided to suspend their studies based on their final grades. Unfortunately, Cheng Yi ended up ranking last. It was really embarrassing to be seen through. He Jing's parents were afraid that she would look down on them and think that they valued boys over girls. However, they did not expect He Jing to smile. But I've always been ranked first in class. He Sui's body stiffened. Father He and Mother He were completely shocked. A strange expression flashed across the eldest brother, He Yuan's face, and then a faint smile appeared in his eyes. How could this be? She clearly seemed like the kind of girl who was aloof from worldly matters. She would have afternoon tea with her friends today, and go shopping at the mall tomorrow. She would casually take the college entrance examination. Then, she would wait to be sent abroad for further studies and to be gilded. He Jing spoke leisurely, 4th brother, you're in your 3rd year of high school this year, right? Why don't we have a math competition? He Sui was about to laugh. He looked at her with endless pity. First high school was a key provincial high school, and he had never fallen out of the top 10 in the school. He relied on his academic record to receive excellent performance allowances every year. How could he compare with her in solving math problems? Heh. All right, don't blame me for bullying you. He Sui was very proud of his abilities and did not take He Jing's so-called top rank in the class in his eyes seriously at all. He knew that she attended an elite high school filled with wealthy kids who only knew how to eat, drink and have fun all day long. She was the best among the dandies. It was unlike first high school. There were so many people in the province taking the middle school examination together, and only a few could enter. Jing smiled even sweeter and blinked. Then please go easy on me, fourth brother. The youngest brother, Xiaogua, looked at the eldest brother, Yuan, timidly. His face was wrinkled and he was worried. Although the new sister looked very capable, Sui was really amazing. Yuan also felt uneasy and could not help but say, Jingjing, you should rest more since you have just arrived. Jing tilted her head, and her big, watery eyes were as charming as grapes. Big brother, I'm really powerful. You can't doubt my strength. However, Sui had already taken out the 2 test papers that he had to do tonight from his bag and slammed them on the table. Then, he glanced at Yuan and said arrogantly, Big brother, don't worry. I'll take it easy on her. However, the more he spoke, the more Yuan knew that his fighting spirit had been ignited. He would definitely do his best to humiliate Jing. Chapter 7. Yuan looked at Jing again and again. She still had a carefree expression as if nothing mattered. He could only say, since that's the case, I'll be the referee. Okay. No problem. Sui and Jing agreed. Sui snatched the set of exam papers, the A version, and sneered lazily, the A version is even harder. Don't accuse me of taking advantage. Jing nodded. Thank you, fourth brother. I'll do my best. Yuan suddenly remembered, Jingjing, are you only in your 2nd year of high school? Jing said, yes. Yuan frowned and said, Sui is already in his 3rd year of high school this year. If there's anything on the test paper that you don't know how to do, just leave it blank. It's beyond the scope of the 2nd year curriculum and all will be graded. Jing wanted to say no, but Sui had already said arrogantly, sure. He glanced at Jing and smirked. As long as she doesn't cry when she loses later. Then, the competition officially began. The time limit was set at 1 hour because it was lunchtime in an hour. Sui didn't have any objections, and neither did Jing. Sui sat on the sofa and started writing on the small, peeling tea table. Jing went to the dining table, looking as if she did not want to be disturbed. Hence, no one went up to disturb her. Everyone surrounded Sui and watched as he wrote the exam paper with great vigor. An hour later. No, not even. An hour. Sui finished the exam papers. The neat pages are filled with dense writing. He looked up at Jing. The beautiful young girl tilted her head. Her fair skin was like a touch of brightness embedded in the cold gray tone. Her slightly tilted side profile was exquisite and beautiful like an oil painting. Her slender hands were still writing slowly. It was obvious that she had not finished it. Sui reminded her mockingly, you only have 2 minutes left. As soon as he said this, Jing put down her pen. The whole family stared at Jing, their hearts pounding. They were inexplicably nervous, but she was like an exemplary student who did not go overboard. She stood up and handed the exam paper to the eldest brother, Yuan. Yuan only took a glance at the paper and was completely stunned. The handwriting was too beautiful. Sui also stuffed his exam paper into Yuan's hands and waited for the result of his certain victory. Then, the living room fell silent. No one dared to make a sound to disturb him, afraid that they would disturb Yuan's thoughts. Mother he was supposed to go and cook, but for some reason, she couldn't move her legs at this moment. She waited for the outcome like she was buying a lottery ticket. Father he had a serious expression on his face as Xiaogua pulled on his trousers. Both of them were worried, although they didn't know who they should hope to win. Yuan's expression suddenly became peculiar, as if he had seen something strange. Sui was an impatient person. Seeing this, he immediately said, how is it, brother? Did Jing fail? Yuan slowly shook his head and handed the exam paper to him. He said, you lost. Sui's eyes widened on the spot and he cried out excitedly, how is this possible? Yuan said, see for yourself. Sui quickly lowered his head and realized that the last 2 questions, she had used several different methods to solve, and the handwriting was leisurely and relaxed as if she had added them after finishing the test paper with nothing else to do. This question was last year's college entrance examination. It was called the Devil's Question by last year's examinees. Not only did she write the correct answer, but she also used 3 solutions. Xiao Sui, you were outdone. You lost. He Sui's hands and feet turned cold. He raised his eyes stiffly and looked at He Jing. The young girl was still smiling, as if she was unfazed by favor or humiliation. Chapter 8. He Jing certainly knew that she would win. What a joke. She was a top student who transmigrated. How could she not win against a little kid? So, if we were to choose sacrifice based on results, fourth brother should be ahead of me. He Yuan, this. He Jing let out an ah and said in an extremely apologetic tone, I'm sorry, fourth brother. I took away your chance to go to school. Eldest brother, quickly go and call second brother back. The matter of tuition fees has been resolved. He Sui had just recovered from the blow and almost spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard this. He flew into a rage and said, I'm not dropping out of school. He Jing blinked innocently, but your studies aren't as good as mine. He Sui choked. He then heard her say in an exasperating tone, could it be that fourth brother wants to bring sister Cheng Yi back and let her drop out of school in your place? He Sui gritted his teeth, absolutely not. He said inwardly, this damned woman. If it was said that he only disliked her when she first arrived, then now he simply wanted to strangle her. He Jing smiled again. I'm just joking. Don't take it to heart, fourth brother. The Cheng family has paid for my tuition fees for 3 years, so I will continue to study at Yin High School. As for second brother's tuition fee, I will find a way to handle it. Father He's eyes immediately brightened, and mother He seemed to be flattered. Is that true, Jing Jing? It's true. Mother He couldn't help but laugh. According to He Jing's words, the He family could save another sum of money. This was really great. Although the He family had always treated Cheng Yi as their biological daughter, her high tuition fees were really a heavy burden. Now, they could finally pay off the money they owed the school. As for He Jing's comment about finding a way, mother He did not take it to heart at all. He Jing looked at He Yuan again. Big brother, let's go out and look for second brother. If he runs out like this, it won't be good if he encounters danger. He Yuan smiled gently and said, all right. Mother He felt like the dark clouds above her head dissipate, and she felt much lighter. Then come back early. I'll go cook. He Jing followed He Yuan out of the house. The He family lived in a residential area called Goldfish Ridge. It was near a construction site where new buildings were being erected. It was quiet and sparsely populated in this area. He Yuan and He Jing walked side by side and said to He Jing in a low voice, fourth brother doesn't have any bad intentions. He just likes Xiao Yi very much. Don't lower yourself to his level. He Jing shook her head, I won't. Why would she, a 25-year-old auntie, argue with a 17-year-old kid? He Yuan glanced at the construction site in front of him and said worriedly, let's go and look for Xiaoning together. He Jing wasn't familiar with the surrounding environment, so she naturally didn't want to be presumptuous and readily agreed. Then, the two of them walked through the construction site and arrived at a lively sports field. He Ning was sitting on a swing and watching primary school students play basketball. He Yuan said, wait for me here. He walked towards He Ning alone. He Jing stood where she was as she watched He Yuan and He Ning talk about something. After a moment, He Ning turned to look at her, his eyes extremely cold. He pursed his thin lips slightly, and his handsome face was filled with expressions such as troublesome and unhappy. Then, he left He Yuan behind and walked alone in the direction of the He family. He Yuan turned around and said to He Jing, let's go, we'll go back too. He Jing looked at He Ning's back and nodded. All right. Then, the two of them followed He Ning and slowly made their way back home. When He Ning returned home, he clearly felt that the atmosphere at home was not right. Father He was sitting on the sofa reading yesterday's newspaper, and the corners of his mouth curled up as if he had won a lottery of 5 million. He Xiaoguo was playing with a cheap frog clockwork toy, but his mind was not on it. He kept glancing in the direction of the door. Chapter 9. Fourth brother sat on the sofa with an expression as if someone owed him 100 million yuan. He crossed his arms and seemed a little unconvinced. There were 2 test papers in front of him, one of which was crumpled. Mother He came out of the kitchen with tomato soup. Her face was flushed as if it was the second day of their marriage. When she saw He Ning, she greeted, "Ning Ning is back. It's time to eat." She paused for a moment, looked behind him, and asked, "Why are you back alone? Where are eldest brother and Jingjing?" He Ning wasn't in the mood to respond. He said perfunctorily, "They'll be back soon. I won't have dinner. I had ice cream outside." As he spoke, he walked towards his room. The door slammed shut with a bang. Father He put down the newspaper and sighed. He still can't bear to part with Xiao Yi. His 7 sons had a good relationship with Cheng Yi. Now that Cheng Yi had left and a stranger had come, it was normal for the brothers to be awkward. 15 minutes later, He Jing and He Yuan returned. He Jing had already changed out of her little dress and wore a simple white shirt and pleated skirt. She was talking and laughing with He Yuan, looking very happy. He Sui and He Xiaogua, who were sitting on the sofa, looked up at the same time. They were genuinely stunned. He Jing, in her white shirt, had completely lost the glamour she had when they first met. She seemed like a pearl that had lost its luster and returned to dust and smoke. However, her beautiful face did not make her look ordinary at all. Her curly hair was tied up with a newly bought rubber band and tied up into a bun. Her youthful and cute vibe overflowed, just like a lemon in summer. Just a look at her made people think of sour and sweet. She was really good-looking. Although Cheng Yi was also very good-looking, her style remained consistent. She had always presented herself with a pure and innocent image. On the other hand, He Jing was versatile and exquisite, as if she could hold on to any style. He Sui could not help but be envious of the boys who were in the same high school as He Jing. If there were such beautiful girls in their school, his grades would definitely not be so good. As soon as the thought flashed through his mind, He Sui wanted to slap himself twice. Thinking of his failure just now, he got up angrily and went into the room. He said to Mother He, "I won't eat dinner either. I'm not hungry." Mother He had just brought all the food to the table when she exclaimed, "Ei." When she looked at He Jing again, she immediately forgot what she was about to say. Her eyes were filled with love and joy. "As expected of my daughter, you look beautiful in everything." He Jing's eyes curved, "Really? Of course it's true." Mother He praised her sincerely but then couldn't hold back and asked He Yuan softly, "How much did you spend on this outfit?" He Yuan put one hand in his pocket and said calmly, 30 yuan. The top was 10 yuan, the skirt was 20 yuan, and she even asked the boss for a pair of socks. Mother He relaxed her brows and then scolded, "It's so cheap. Why don't you buy more for Jingjing?" He Jing said, "Mom, it's not necessary. I have to wear my school uniform to school. This outfit is just right for changing." He Xiaogua had put down the frog toy long ago. With eyes full of envy, he said, "Mom, can I get my new sister to send me to school tomorrow?" If He Jing was willing to send him to school, all the children in school would be envious of him. Mother He refused decisively, "No, we can't trouble your sister." Unable to hold back his deep disappointment, He Xiaogua weakly said, "Oh." He sounded extremely pitiful. After dinner, He Jing took the initiative to go into the kitchen to help Mother He with the dishes. In her previous life, as Cinderella, housework came naturally to her, but before she could start, Mother He drove her out. Chapter 10. Mother He said, "You can just sit on the sofa. Xiao Yuan, take the rice from the rice cooker and serve it to Ning Ning and Xiao Sui." He Ning and He Sui were growing, so how could they skip meals? In the room, He Sui sat in front of an old desk that was almost crushed by books and felt depressed. Losing to He Jing was really too embarrassing. He could only comfort himself with the excuse that He Jing must have studied at the Qing family to feel better. He turned to look at He Ning, who was lying on the bed. His eyes were closed, and he had earphones in his ears that had lost their paint. He was listening to music on an outdated MP3 player. His black hair covered his full forehead, and the curves of his face were extremely handsome. He Sui called out, "Second brother." He Ning took off an earpiece and opened his eyes. His expression was cold and impatient. "What is it? When He Jing went out to look for you today, did she say anything to you?" "No." With just a few words, He Sui already sensed that He Ning was in a bad mood. He shut his mouth resentfully and stopped asking for trouble. He Ning plugged the earphones back on, and a tender and crisp female voice played in the earphones. It was Cheng Yi. The next day, He Jing woke up early and tidied up the room. She didn't like to use second-hand things, so she had to throw away everything that Cheng Yi had left behind. When she opened the door with a full bag of items, He Jing happened to bump into He Ning, who was walking out of the room. The two of them looked at each other. He Ning remained expressionless, and He Jing greeted her with a sweet smile, "Good morning." He Ning walked past her without looking at her. He Jing usually used the bathroom at 6:30 a.m. It was only 6 a.m. now. He Yuan, He Sui, and He Xiaoguo would come out later. After washing up, everyone would sit together for breakfast. Father He and Mother He had to leave early for work, so they couldn't eat breakfast together. He Jing had packed a lot of things. It took her a lot of effort to move from the door of the room to the sofa. She sat on the floor and swung her arms with a sense of helplessness. Suddenly, a hand reached out in front of her and easily picked up the things. He Jing followed the hand and looked up. It was He Yuan. He had just woken up. His hair was disheveled, and the sleepiness in his eyes had not dissipated. He Jing's smile was as bright as a sunflower in the morning. "Good morning, big brother," He Yuan said. "Leave the heavy work to us boys. You're a girl. You shouldn't force yourself." He Jing felt a heartfelt warmth in her heart. She got up from the ground and followed He Yuan out. Unexpectedly, a hole appeared in the bag and the rubbish she had collected spilled all over the floor. Cheng Yi's skincare products, clothes, and cheap jewelry were all over the ground. At the same time, He Sui opened the door and exploded on the spot. "He Jing, what are you doing?" He Ning walked out of the bathroom with a toothbrush in his mouth and foam all over the corner of his mouth. Even He Xiaoguo also came out of the room. Even He Yuan's expression was quite unsightly. He had thought that He Jing was just cleaning up the ordinary trash, but he did not expect her to throw away Cheng Yi's belongings without permission. Yet, she smiled and said calmly, "There were too many things piled up in the room. If I didn't throw some away, it would be very crowded, so I cleared some." He Sui rushed to He Jing and grabbed her wrist. His eyes were red as he roared angrily, "These are all Xiao Yi's things. What right do you have to do this?" He Jing's hand was in pain from the strangulation. She glanced at the other three brothers, and their expressions were all indifferent. It was obvious that they felt that she was wrong because they only treated her as an outsider who had only been here for a day. Cheng Yi was their biological sister in their eyes. Chapter 11. He Jing wasn't panicking. She had a strong mental fortitude and could withstand all kinds of blows. It was the standard for a vicious supporting actress to continue courting death. For someone like her, who had been tempered by her vicious stepmother, to have a strong will, as long as she didn't suffer any substantial harm, other blows were nothing. Thus, she turned her gaze back to He Sui and raised her eyebrows slightly. "I can tell you the address of the Qing family. If you don't want me to throw these things away, you can send these things to her personally." He Sui's anger came to an abrupt halt for no reason. He had nowhere to vent it. He let go of his hand and picked up the things on the ground. He glared at her fiercely. "You're not allowed to touch Xiao Yi's things in the future." He Jing chuckled, "You dare not to look for her because you know she won't want it, so you can only vent your anger on me. Fourth brother, that's not very manly of you." It was as if He Sui's sore spot was poked, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He cursed angrily, "T. This is Xiao Yi's thing. If I give it to her, she will definitely want it. You don't know her at all. She's not someone like you." He Jing sighed leisurely, sighing in his ignorance, "Do you know how wealthy the Qing family is? Cheng Yi is living in the bedroom that I personally modified in the past. It's 200 square meters, which is about triple the size of the He family's house. It has a natural bath, a walk-in closet, and a gym. The clothes she wears are from the latest international designer brands, and the shoes she wears are all handmade and custom-made. Every product she puts on her face goes through rigorous testing to match her skin's needs. The ingredients added to them are enough to buy the entire supermarket you're holding in this bag of trash. Are you sure she will use it if you give it to her?" He Sui stubbornly argued, "Even if she doesn't use it, she'll definitely keep it well." He Jing was almost moved to tears by his intelligence. She simply couldn't be bothered to argue with him and said, "Whatever." He heard helplessness and deep disdain in her tone. His self-esteem was severely damaged as he shouted, "So be it. I'll definitely prove it to you." Jing was so calm that she didn't even frown. "Sure, I'll wait for you." Stormed back to his room and slammed the door loudly. Jing shook her head imperceptibly, full of sympathy for him. The plot in the book was straightforward. After the true heiress returned to the Qing family, she was afraid that her biological mother, Yi Shuping, would feel bad. Until her brothers became successful, she did not return to the He family to visit them once. Following the plot setting of a light novel protagonist, after Cheng Yi returned to the Qing family, she quickly adapted to the life of a wealthy family and started her daily face-slapping routine. She entered an aristocratic school to slap her ignorant classmates, attended a wealthy family banquet to slap her arrogant socialite, and even went shopping to slap the passers-by who were showing off their wealth. If she was not slapping her face, she was on the way to do so. She had long forgotten about the He family. If it weren't for the fact that the brothers of the He family had become successful and could become her golden finger, Jing believed their roles in the story would be limited to 2 chapters at most. Ning, the typical second male lead, had hardly any scenes before becoming the nation's male god. So, giving her skincare products was simply asking for trouble. She had no choice but to accept it. After breakfast, He Yuan left the house first. He was doing an internship while attending university and had a dormitory outside. If it weren't for welcoming his younger sister, he wouldn't have made the effort to come home. He probably wouldn't be able to see his family for the next month. Ning and Sui, on the other hand, both attended the first high school, but it was far from home. It took 40 minutes bus ride to reach. They had no choice but to leave quickly. There were limited spaces in the high school dormitory, and they had to pay for the accommodation fee. The He family obviously could not afford it. The brothers could only attend day school, even if it took a terrifying amount of time to go back and forth. They had brought lunchboxes, which were leftovers that Mother He had deliberately made yesterday. They could bring them to school after they were heated up in the morning. Jing didn't have a lunchbox. Mother He left 20 yuan on her bedside, probably because she wanted her to buy something to eat herself and not let her suffer too much. Chapter 12. 20 yuan was already a lot. For the He family, it was enough for the brothers to eat several meals. Jing was touched and sighed in her heart. Although the He family was poor, they really doted on their daughter. If the fake heiress was willing to come back, she might not have died and could still live happily. High School was near First High School and far from home. Jing had no choice but to leave with Ning and Sui, leaving Xiaoguo alone at home. She said worriedly, "Will Xiaoguo be fine alone?" Sui was annoyed when he heard her words and wanted to stab her. "Don't be hypocritical. Third brother will be back in a while." Oh. The Goldfish Ridge was 200 meters away from the nearest bus stop. Sui walked very quickly, leaving Jing behind. Jing walked side by side with Ning, who wore white earphones and had a slightly cold expression on his handsome face. She called out to him. Ning turned his head impatiently and frowned slightly. Jing asked, "Second brother, can you lend me some change?" The money would get stuck in the bus fare machine if it wasn't inserted properly. Mother He gave her a 20 yuan. In the past, she could squander her money as she pleased, but now she was a pauper. She had to break a penny into 2 pieces. Ning pursed his lips and reluctantly took out 4 1 yuan notes from his old wallet and handed them to her. He was extremely cold and aloof, as if he was saying, "Troublemaker, don't talk to me again." Jing smiled and took it. "I'll pay you back." The young man's voice was icy. "No need." The bus arrived and he got on it. The bus was packed with people. Jing did not see Sui. She stuffed 2 notes into the bus fare machine and walked to the back of the bus with difficulty. She never thought that she would have to squeeze on a bus one day. Fortunately, she had a strong will and was not pretentious. Men and women were squeezed together, and the scene was quite tragic. Jing suddenly felt someone touch her thigh and felt extremely disgusted. High School's school uniform was a white shirt and a suit skirt. The skirt was a little above her knees, so it wasn't considered exposing at all. Jing was almost certain that the person who touched her was intentional. The second day after she transmigrated, she encountered a pervert. He Jing was extremely annoyed. She turned her head to see who the audacious person was to be so bold, but to her surprise, He Ning stood beside her. He used his school bag to wedge between her and the other person and created a gap between her and the surrounding people forcefully. He Jing was stunned. She slowly smiled and said, "Thank you, second brother." However, He Ning didn't even spare her a glance and his beautiful eyes were extremely cold. He Jing remembered the description of He Ning in the book. The young idol who became famous could make his fans blush and their hearts beat with a smile. In private, he had a hot-tempered and irritable personality. Only the real heiress could soothe his manic depression. She didn't see any signs of his manic depression, but he seemed quite gentle. The moment He Jing stepped into the classroom based on her memory, the air instantly fell silent. All the students turned to look at her in unison, their eyes filled with disbelief. An imposter heiress actually dared to appear in Yin High School. At the same time, He Jing noticed Cheng Yi, the real heiress who was adored by everyone. She sat in her seat and glanced. In the large classroom, Cheng Yi's appearance was clearly not the most outstanding, but her innate female-led temperament made her stand out among the cannon fodder and was very dazzling. When Cheng Yi saw He Jing, a visible nervousness appeared on her face as if she was afraid that she would make trouble. He Jing suddenly remembered the original plot. The fake heiress had indeed made things difficult for Cheng Yi, saying that even if she changed her identity, she was still a pheasant with phoenix feathers. Her grades were as bad as a ghost and she was not worthy of studying at Yin High School. This scene happened to be witnessed by the male lead, Yan Hanqi, who arrived just in time. A protective instinct surged in his heart, and he boldly declared that he would tutor her, no matter how unreasonable it was. As for Yan Hanqi, he originally had an engagement with the fake heiress. However, after Cheng Yi transferred to Yin High School, he fell in love with her at first sight and quickly fell into a deep affection. He then unilaterally broke off the engagement with the fake heiress. Chapter 13. This was also an important reason for the constant death of the fake heiress. The female protagonist was destined to have everything. As a vicious female supporting character, even if she wanted to save her love, it was a great sin. From then on, the fake heiress turned into a complete tragedy. Not only did she watch the boy she liked protect another girl, but she also became the target of ridicule in the entire school. Her image as the proud girl of the heavens was gone forever. Thinking of this, He Jing frowned and glanced around the classroom quietly. Yan Hanqi was probably not there. Initially, in order to be with Yan Hanqi, the fake heiress got admitted to Yin High School and chose the science stream. But from now on, it would not be the case anymore. No matter how impressive Yan Hanqi was, she didn't care. In a daze, someone called out, "He Jing." He Jing looked at her and saw Cheng Yi stand up from her seat. She suppressed her nervousness and hostility and smiled magnanimously and forgiving. "I hope we can get along well in the future." If it were the fake heiress, she would probably have exploded. Just being deprived of her heiress status would have been good enough, yet Cheng Yi actually wanted to get along well. What a joke. However, He Jing only nodded calmly and replied, "Okay." Then, she walked back to her seat. Not only the students in the classroom but even Cheng Yi was stunned. She took the initiative to lower her head and express her goodwill because her position in the Qing family was still not stable. If things really got out of hand, she did not know which side her father, who was filled with guilt towards He Jing, would stand on. However, she did not expect He Jing to let it go so easily. Cheng Yi thought, how could this be? Didn't He Jing desperately say that she wanted to stay with the Qing family 2 days ago and chase me out? The classmates were even more surprised. He Jing was used to being arrogant and condescending in school. She looked down on everyone except Yan Hanqi. She didn't put anyone in her eyes, but she could actually treat Cheng Yi so calmly. The sun really rose from the west. But the situation was clear and obvious. He Jing wiped her desk with a tissue as if no one was around. She took out her textbooks and began her pre-class preparation. Cheng Yi glanced at her for a while, curled her fingers, and looked away unwillingly. Now, she was the young heiress of the Qing family. He Jing was worlds apart from her. She really didn't need to pay too much attention to her, right? However, the expression on Cheng Yu's face when he mentioned He Jing made Cheng Yi determined to study hard and become someone better than He Jing, completely replacing He Jing's position in Cheng Yu's heart. Yan Hanqi didn't show up even when class started. He Jing overheard the students whispering, he skipped class again. I heard that Yan Hanqi had a fight with a third-year student from the neighboring first high school. What's the grudge between them? Who knows? Anyway, the teacher doesn't care. He always tops every exam, he's a genius. He Jing lowered her eyes and looked cold. She thought to herself, first place. Not for long. The math class this time was about trigonometric functions. The teacher called a student to come up to the blackboard and solve a question. At a glance, the teacher saw Cheng Yi's pretty face in the classroom and excitedly called out, the student who just transferred over, come and do this question. Cheng Yi's expression changed when she was called. Her grades were not good. When she transferred, she did not pass the entrance test of Yin High School. She only got less than 60 points in many subjects. Among them, her math score was the worst, only getting a single digit. The Cheng family donated 3 buildings and barely managed to get her into the school. When they asked her if she wanted to study humanities or sciences, she deliberately chose the science stream to compete with He Jing. She thought that she would be able to completely replace He Jing sooner or later, but she did not expect to fail in her first class. Chapter 14. Cheng Yi didn't know how to answer this question and couldn't even understand it. The math teacher thought she was shy and said gently, come on, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone, give her a round of applause to encourage her. The classroom suddenly erupted into applause. Cheng Yi had no choice but to go up. She moved with difficulty and stood in front of an empty blackboard. She picked up the chalk as her fingertips trembled. After a long time, she wrote the word solution, but there was no follow-up. The classmates became impatient, and the math teacher gradually caught on to the situation. His joy was replaced by dissatisfaction in the blink of an eye. He hated connections. The teacher felt speechless and he turned around and called another person's name, Cheng Jing. He Jing stood up in response and smiled as she said, I changed my name, teacher. My surname is He. The math teacher looked at her with a smile, pleased with her excellent temperament. All right, then He Jing, come up and teach Cheng Yi. He Jing walked onto the stage and took the chalk from Cheng Yi's hand graciously. She wrote a series of formulas behind the word solution and said calmly, substitute this formula first, then do this. Every number was written neatly. Cheng Yi stood at the side and suddenly felt extremely inferior. She felt the burning gazes of the entire class on her. She curled her fingers tightly and felt so ashamed that she could not even hide her face. The questions that were so difficult for her to solve had become so easy in He Jing's hands. The whole class must be laughing at her. After what seemed like an extremely long time had passed, He Jing had already written down a full solution and answer. She asked calmly, have you learned it? Cheng Yi clutched her clothes tightly and nodded. Only then did the math teacher reveal a satisfied smile. Very good. He Jing, please help this new student in the future. The new student should also learn more from He Jing. He Jing frowned and did not say anything. Cheng Yi replied softly, yes. She felt extremely humiliated. Cheng Yi turned around, and the mocking and teasing looks from the whole class confirmed her embarrassment. Cheng Yi didn't even dare to raise her head and hurried back to her seat. He Jing slowly followed behind her and flipped through her notes again. The class quickly ended. The math teacher asked the class monitor to distribute 2 papers as homework. He Jing summarized the key points of the class. Suddenly, a shadow cast over her head. She looked up and saw Cheng Yi standing in front of her desk, bolstering her with her desk mate. He Jing asked, what's the matter? That, Cheng Yi looked a little embarrassed. Can you teach me how to do the questions? He Jing raised her eyebrows. She was surprised, but she did not show any other emotions. In fact, Cheng Yi was deeply distressed. She struggled for a long time, then she pursed her rosy lips and said seriously, the He family is very poor. It should be difficult for you to go back, right? If you teach me how to do the questions, I'll give you money. You can earn money with dignity and even subsidize your family. He Jing instantly understood her intentions and was especially impressed by her. She had to admit that the female lead was indeed the female lead. Every word and sentence was filled with schemes. The He family is very poor. It should be very difficult for you, right? She subtly demeaned others while showing the superiority of her reverse superiority. You teach me, and I give you money. You can earn money with dignity. After she hit a stick, she gave a candy to buy people's hearts. It was awesome. And even support your family. The ultimate goal was to use He Jing's hand to give the He family a little bit of return to highlight her understanding and goodness. However, if the He brothers knew that Cheng Yi was the one who gave her all the money she earned, who would remember her efforts? Chapter 15. The He brothers had always been obsessed with Cheng Yi. Now that they knew that she was in the Cheng family but her heart was in the He family, they would probably be moved to tears. They would also think that she was a victim who was forced to return to the Cheng family. Cheng Yi had enjoyed a good life and was a good person. Compared to He Jing, she, who had a dark history of committing suicide and did not want to go home, was simply useless. In the end, Cheng Yi could still get what she wanted and improve her results. It was really perfect. He Jing smiled gently, her eyes bright and dazzling. Cheng Yo, I'll think of a way to earn money to support my family. You don't have to worry about it. You'd better sign up for a proper tutoring class. It's much more useful than relying on me. When Cheng Yi came with her plan, she felt that even if He Jing refused, she would have at least considered it. But she did not expect her to be so straightforward. She said anxiously, He Jing, I know you have objections to me, but please don't be willful. This is a good idea, isn't it? The He family is already so poor that they can't make a living. They don't have the money to support you to study at High School. When the time comes, you might even have to drop out of school. Well, that's none of your concern. He Jing said inwardly, a way to earn money. I had plenty. He Jing had already thought of it on her way to school. Cheng Yi didn't expect He Jing to be so stubborn. Unable to hold back, she blurted out, He Jing, are you afraid that I will surpass you? He Jing blinked, and her expression became very subtle. After a while, she smiled. Yes, you're right. Cheng Yi was speechless. Cheng Yi thought, do you think I'll believe in you? Cheng Yi stood in front of He Jing's table for a long time, but He Jing had no intention of changing her mind. She bit her lip and left unwillingly. Her deskmate comforted her. Cheng Yi, don't be too sad. He Jing is like this. She can't tolerate anyone except Yan Hanshi. Unfortunately, Yan Hanshi doesn't like her at all. If you can think of a way to get Yan Hanshi to teach you how to do the questions, that would be awesome. Cheng Yi was new to the school and didn't know who Yan Hanshi was, but her deskmate piqued her interest when she speaks so highly of him. Her deskmate was Yan Hanshi's fangirl, and she kept talking, who is the most handsome in High School? It is definitely my brother Shi. He is the school's heartthrob when he enters the school, and he is a legend in exams. He skips class yet still gets first place. High School is a school for the rich. Kidnapping and extortion cases happen every 2 or 3 days. But if brother Shi steps in, the kidnappers will instead pay for the protection fee. All the female fans in a city had exploded. When the talent scout came to poach him, brother Shi refused to leave the school. In short, brother Shi is invincible. The woman that brother Shi likes hasn't been born yet, and neither can He Jing. Cheng Yi's heart skipped a beat, and even her gaze became somewhat eager. He Jing got into High School on her own, but she had gotten in through the back door. If Yan Hanshi liked her, she would not lose to He Jing. Moreover, there was no need for her to be anxious. The He family was so poor that they couldn't afford He Jing's education. If she didn't accept her good intentions and couldn't earn money, she would drop out of school soon. By then, she would still be the daughter of a rich family, while He Jing would only become an ugly duckling and gradually fade away from the masses. He Jing was still unaware of Cheng Yi's secret intentions. She planned to earn some money as she had several siblings to support. Each of them was as thin as a bamboo pole. In the future, they would also have a lot of problems even if they had succeeded. During the last class of the day, their class teacher said, "We'll have monthly exams next Monday. Go back and revise well. The student who ranks last in the class will be responsible for cleaning the classroom for a week. There will be a parent-teacher meeting at the end of the term, and these results will be recorded on the report card." The whole class wailed like headless flies. Some of them did not want to rank last and clean the classroom, while others feared getting scolded for not improving their ranks after each exam. In short, everyone was in a panic. Of course, He Jing was an exception. Chapter 16. Her lips curled up slightly and knew that her chance had come. After the class teacher left the classroom, she flipped through the notebook she had copied late last night. She opened it and slowly flipped through page by page. It was filled with well-prepared notes. The slackers were still discussing how to successfully pass the exam. One after another, they were suddenly attracted by the bright red notes. They looked at each other and read a message from each other's eyes, "No way." Soon, the confusion in their eyes dissipated, and became extremely determined. For the sake of the exam, they had to collide with He Jing. Everyone in the class knew that He Jing didn't care about anyone except Yan Hanshi, but He Jing was really awesome. Other than Yan Hanshi, no one was more capable than her. She was a genuine top student. "Jing. Sister Jing," one of the struggling students called out tentatively. He Jing looked at him and smiled gently, appearing quite amiable. "What's the matter? Do you need something?" The group of struggling students slapped their thighs and thought, "F***ck, she's changed." The struggling student revealed a shy smile. "Sister Jing, can you lend me your notes to copy? It's an emergency." Today was Friday, and there were only 2 days left until Monday. They didn't want to fail their exams. He Jing tilted her head and said in confusion, "But I have to revise too. What should I do?" The struggling student tried his best to brag, "Sister Jing, you're so awesome. You will be number 1 even without revision." "Sister Jing, are you lacking strength now?" "No. What you lack now is luck. As long as you are willing to lend me your notebook, I am willing to ask my father to set up Sister Jing's foundation overnight to sponsor children in the mountainous areas. God will definitely bless you to surpass Brother Shi and become the first in the school." He Jing was speechless. Frankly speaking, who in the entire A city needed sponsorship more than her? No one. "Fine, but I won't lend it to you. I'll only sell it. I'll give you the whole notebook for 5,000 yuan. What do you think?" The struggling student was stunned. He Jing smiled and said slowly, "I'm not the daughter of a wealthy family now. I can't even afford a meal. To be honest, I borrowed the bus fare today. If you guys don't like the idea, forget it." The student roared on the spot, "I'm willing. Oh my god, 5,000 yuan in exchange for a chance to be a top student." It was so profitable. For someone like him who had to spend 5,000 yuan on a meal, He Jing seemed like Guanyin Bodhisattva herself. When the other slackers heard this, they went wild. "He Jing, you're going too far. 5,000 yuan to sell your intellectual treasure. I'll offer 10,000 yuan. I'll offer 20,000 yuan. I'll offer 50,000 yuan. The classmates were in an uproar. The entire classroom erupted into chaos. He Jing's phone vibrated one after another. Someone sent her friend requests through the class group, and someone simply transferred money to her. Cheng Yi sat in her seat and packed her bag, dumbfounded. There was only one thought in her mind: this group of prodigals must be crazy. Was it necessary to spend so much money on a notebook? But at the same time, her expression also turned unpleasant. She thought, He Jing said that she would earn money by herself, and she had indeed earned money. Did that mean she would continue to study at In High School? Moreover, she would rather sell her notes to others than tutor me. She was hostile to me. In less than 10 minutes, He Jing had sold the 2 notebooks that she had spent the entire night copying. She had earned a net profit of 20,000 yuan and was very satisfied. The struggling student, who had bought the notes, hugged his divine weapon and refused to let go, afraid that it would be snatched away. Another struggling student, who had been lucky enough to get the second divine weapon with quick transfers, proudly displayed the notes for others to see. The handwriting was amazing. Chapter 17. It was clearly handwritten, and the words were so beautiful. The coordinate axes drawn were even better than theirs. The difference between people was too big. They really wanted to collect it. Half an hour later, everyone in the classroom had left. He Jing had to go back too. In High School did not have evening self-study. The teachers were punctual with their dismissal time, more accurate than a cuckoo clock. If the students wanted to get good grades, they had to study on their own. He Jing packed her bag and prepared to leave but was stopped by someone. She didn't even lift her eyelids and said emotionlessly, "Is there anything else?" Jing Yi's eyes were filled with grievance and she looked a little pitiful. "Why can't we be friends? Although we've exchanged identities, it wasn't my fault." He Jing, there's really no need for us to be so hostile. He Jing looked at her in anger and amusement. Since when did we go against each other? Was it because I embarrassed you in front of the teacher by going up to help you solve the question or because I refused to tutor you? Cheng Yi, I don't want to be friends with you because we're not on the same path. That's all. Cheng Yi was embarrassed and angry, but she couldn't help but retort, "Aren't you angry that I stole your identity?" "You're clearly." "No, I'm not." He Jing looked at her with a clear gaze. "I don't care about being rich. If you want it, you can. Take it." Anyway, she had lived enough of the days of glory and wealth, right? She just wanted to live an ordinary life now. Cheng Yi was speechless. For some reason, she felt inexplicably humble. She was clearly the real daughter of a wealthy family, but she felt as if she had stolen this identity. She thought, why? Why was this happening? "Good luck with your monthly exam." "I wish you all the best," He Jing said lightly and left, avoiding her. In high school didn't have evening self-study sessions, but First High School did. The students in First High School were known for their diligence. They finished school at 9 every day. The total number of exam papers they had was enough to circle the world twice. It had even been on the city news. Almost every year, the top scorer of the provincial college entrance examination came from First High School. He Jing admired this school. She wanted to wait for He Ning and He Sui to go back together after school, so she wandered around First High School alone to familiarize herself with the surroundings. She even bought some oden and 2 ice creams. There was no doubt that the ice cream was for He Ning, and she planned to bring the oden to Yi Xiaogua and the others. They rarely had the chance to eat such snacks. They would definitely like it. He Jing thought about it and looked at her phone. It was almost time, so she should head to First High School. When she passed by a small alley, she suddenly caught a whiff of a bloody smell. A steel pipe was thrown to the ground with a crisp sound. A few stray dogs barked. It was obvious that something bad was happening in the alley. He Jing had never been interested in such behavior that violated the spirit of socialism, prosperity, democracy, and mutual assistance. In her eyes, those who relied on violence to solve problems were all mentally retarded. Only barbaric animals hunted each other. The country's efforts to eliminate evil were still not strong enough. Suddenly, she heard someone shout, "Yan Hanshi!" As if her feet had been nailed to the ground, He Jing stopped in her tracks and looked into the alley. The sky was dark, and the moon hung in the sky. The tall and slender young man outlined a faint silver silhouette in the moonlight. His sharp shoulders were like rugged mountains, half hidden in the darkness and half exposed under the moonlight. The wind blew his white shirt, revealing his thin and fair waist and a dazzling red mole on his waist. Hearing the commotion, he turned around. His eyes were long and narrow, and the ruthlessness in his eyes had not dissipated. It was Yan Hanshi. Chapter 18. The male lead of this story is both the school bully and the school hunk. Not only are his grades extremely outstanding, but he is also incredibly handsome. As the author's favorite character, he possesses an array of talents, including playing the piano, archery, horse riding, singing, and proficiency in various sports. He even had the skills of GPS, which allowed him to locate the real heiress and save her any time, and the skill to avoid B*cheese, which kept him distant from all females except the female lead. He is also exceptionally strong, capable of effortlessly lifting the female lead with just one hand, even raising her up to the sky. In short, he is an all-around perfect male god, utterly irrational and lovable. He was Cheng Yi's golden thigh and timely savior. The 7 brothers treat him as their archenemy, afraid that Cheng Yi will be taken away by him. But in the end, they failed to guard against him. As for herself, being the vicious female supporting character, she could only be mercilessly killed as cannon fodder. She witnessed the happy end of the 2 with her own eyes and left behind a stroke to advance the plot, hiding her merits and fame. It's really infuriating. He Jing didn't want to stay here at first. Since Yan Hanshi was Cheng Yi's man and had nothing to do with her, she decided to take the initiative to stay away from him to avoid being cannon fodder. But for some reason, being attracted to Yen Hanchi seemed to be an innate instinct of this body, or maybe cannon fodder was destined to be unable to resist the male protagonist, so she couldn't leave at all. Yen Hanchi glanced at her with an indifferent expression, as if they didn't know each other at all. He said, "Get lost." He Jing wanted to leave, but she couldn't. She could only watch as the third-year student from first high school picked up his bag and smashed it at Yen Hanchi, only to be kicked away by him. He Jing finally understood why she was stuck here. It's the rule in novels that the male lead's show-off moments must be witnessed by someone so that person can scream, "Wow, you're amazing." How could the readers appreciate the male lead's handsome and charismatic qualities without her as the cannon fodder? Since she couldn't leave, He Jing decided to stay put. She watched the show lazily. She even wanted to get some melon seeds to snack on. She leaned against the crooked electric pole at the entrance of the alley with her arms crossed in front of her chest, looking calm and composed. Yen Hanchi frowned, obviously displeased, probably because her "I won't leave. I'll see what you can do" attitude was too conspicuous. But soon, he had no time to care about He Jing. Without the worry of, "This little girl will call for help," the third-year students of first high school were more motivated than ever for the beautiful girl's attention. They tried to gang up on Yen Hanchi and rubbed their fists. Yen Hanchi's face suddenly turned very ugly. He turned back to look at He Jing again. He Jing still showed no intention of leaving or calling for help. He pursed his thin lips and faced the third-year students. As He Jing watched, she discovered that something was off. She thought, why was this almighty school hunk so weak? TSK, he almost couldn't win. It was even lousier than the 3 moves and 2 styles that I had practiced before transmigrated. How did he become a school bully like this? He Jing questioned the author's logical thinking. It was unclear if it was revenge or if the fight was too intense and Yen Hanchi forgot that there was someone behind him. A third-year student threw his bag at Yen Hanchi and aimed it at his head. Yen Hanchi dodged and the bag flew straight at He Jing. Bang! The ice cream fell to the ground and turned into a mess of white. He Jing blocked the bag, and the bag of Odin in her other hand swayed. The atmosphere in the alley suddenly changed. Even the stray dog in the alley that held a piece of meat and bone that they had scavenged from the trash can dared not to bark. The third-year student who had hit He Jing stuttered, I'm sorry." Chapter 19. Yen Hanchi was originally annoyed, but when he turned around, he was stunned and then curled his thin lips. He smiled and said casually, "Boss, isn't it inappropriate to act after watching the show for so long?" Then, he bent down to pick up the school bag that he used as a shield, as well as the books and papers that had fallen out of the school bag. He Jing frowned. A third-year student from first high school said, "So you guys are in cahoots." Yen Hanchi said confidently, "Didn't you see that she's wearing the Een high school uniform?" "Of course, we're on the same side, right, boss?" He Jing said coldly, "Shut up. That damned male lead dragged her into this mess. How shameless can he be?" Obviously, a certain someone was very shameless. He imitated her posture from earlier, leaned against the wall, and completely concealed himself in the darkness. He said lazily, "Let me introduce you. This is our school's top star. If she says jump, I won't dare to go down on one knee. If she asks me to stand, I won't dare to lie down. You ruined her ice cream, and you're finished." The third-year student from first high school revealed a horrified expression that said, "Stop King lying." He said, "How is that possible? There has never been a female school bully in Een high school." A certain someone smiled brightly. "Well, today's an exception." The third-year student from first high school was completely stunned. He looked at He Jing with fear as if he was looking at a female dinosaur. He Jing was implicated by Yen Hanchi and smirked. She then placed the Odin in her hand on the ground. 10 minutes later, the alley was littered with corpses scattered in all directions. Yen Hanchi had one hand carrying his backpack and the other in his pocket. "Hey, what's your name?" He Jing ignored him. She picked up the Odin from the ground and turned to leave. Yen Hanchi licked his lips and said again eagerly, "How about becoming sworn brothers? In the future, I'll protect you in all sorts of ways." Of course, He Jing knew how confident he was when he said that. The Yen family was the first prestigious family in a city, and he was the young master of the Yen family. He basically had everything at his disposal. If he really wanted to protect someone, that person could basically do whatever he wanted in a city. But she did not need it. He Jing didn't even bother to look up and said calmly, "Okay." Then, she turned around and waved her hand nonchalantly. Her short skirt fluttered in the wind. She said, "Wait until you finish your 5-day trip in the detention center, little brother." 5 minutes later, the young man who won and the corpse who lost were all taken away in the police car. The third-year student from First High School wailed, "We were the ones beaten up. Why do we have to be arrested too?" The police officer took out his baton and reprimanded coldly, "You're so young and you're not learning well. Behave yourselves." Only the cold-looking young man was expressionless. There was a hint of gloominess in his eyes, and he looked like he wanted to eat someone up. It was already very late when Yi Jing returned home. The whole family looked at her as if they were surprised by her appearance. Then, there was an inexplicable awkwardness in the living room. Even He Sui's face seemed somewhat unnatural. Mother He was obviously embarrassed. She hurriedly got up from the sofa and said, "Jing, you're back. How was school today? I'll go and prepare some noodles for you." He Jing had already guessed something. She picked up the bag of oden and said gently and considerately, "It's my first time taking the bus home, so I'm not familiar with it, so I got lost. Mom, don't trouble yourself. I've already eaten. Look, I brought something for you all." He Xiaoguo almost pounced on her. His voice was crisp and bright, delicious food. He Jing smiled even more cheerfully. She opened the bag of oden and gave him a skewer of fish balls. Then, she placed the rest on the table. Then, she heard He Sui snort proudly and mumble, "I thought you ran back to the Qing family again. You came back so late, and we didn't even leave you any food." He Jing knew that they would think so. Her smile became a little helpless as she said, "Since I'm here, I won't leave again. It's even more impossible for me to sneak back." Her words paused and she turned her gaze to He Ning and asked, "Second brother, do you want some? It won't taste good when it gets cold." Chapter 20. He Ning's eyes were indifferent as he asked, "Where did the money come from?" He Xiaoguo, who was eating a meatball, stopped. He Sui, who was about to sneakily take the squid roll, retracted his hand. Father He, who was sitting on the sofa reading the evening newspaper, looked up. Mother He, who was about to step into the kitchen, also retracted her leg. By the way, Mother He had only given her 20 yuan in total. Where did she get the money to buy oden? Everyone's gaze focused on Yi Jing, filled with curiosity. The air seemed frozen, and a string was pulled taut, ready to snap at any time. Yi Jing smiled nonchalantly. She saw through their true thoughts at a glance and said, "It's not from the Qing family. I earned it myself." He Ning frowned deeply, his handsome face filled with disbelief. He Sui seemed to have grabbed her by the braids and said sarcastically, "Are you kidding me? Where did you earn so much money? Although our He family is poor, we have our pride. We won't accept anything that has an unclear source." He Xiaoguo didn't swallow the meatball. His cheeks were puffed up. He suddenly felt unsure whether to swallow or not. He Jing's beautiful eyes stared straight at He Sui, making He Sui feel guilty. However, she did not say anything. She picked up the oden from the table, turned around, and walked into the room, closing the door. He Sui inexplicably felt that he had been slapped in the face. He then heard his mother say with a hint of blame, "Xiao Sui, you've gone too far. Jing has good intentions no matter what. She specially brought something back for you brothers to eat. Even if she took the Qing family's money, you shouldn't have said that to her. Go apologize to her later." He Sui, who felt guilty, suddenly exploded, "No, why should I apologize to her? She can't explain it. This money is just not clean." Mother He was at a loss for words and sighed in a low voice. Father He said calmly, "I'll talk to Jing later and see where she got the money from. If she borrowed it from the Qing family or her classmates, we'll pay it back for her." At this moment, a car horn sounded outside the door. He Xiaoguo took advantage of the distraction and swallowed the fish ball. Excitedly, he said, "It must be fifth brother and sixth brother who came back from Auntie's house. Every time they returned, they would bring him delicious food. As he spoke, his two short legs ran out like a whirlwind. The tense atmosphere in the living room eased a little. Mother, he took the opportunity to instruct, behave. No matter what, you have to apologize to Jingjing later. He Sui was still unconvinced. I won't apologize even if I die. In less than a minute, He Xiaoguo returned with a group of strangers. They saw that this group of strangers was very young. There were boys and girls, and all of them looked like young masters and daughters. All of them were dressed in branded clothes. One of them even held a Ferrari key. The He family members couldn't know such a rich person, so it could only be someone He Jing knew. Amid the uncertainty, the boy with the Ferrari key hooked on his index finger stood outside the threshold and asked politely, "Hello, Auntie. Does He Jing live here?" Mother He's eyelids twitched. She quickly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes." Then, she kicked He Sui, signaling him to serve tea. She then went to knock on He Jing's door and felt anxious. She lowered her voice and said, "Jingjing, your classmates are here for you." He Jing opened the door. The Odin was still on the old table behind her, untouched. She had changed from her school uniform into the cheap clothes that the eldest brother, He Yuan, bought for her. She walked out with a calm expression. She glanced at the few boys and girls at the door. Who else could it be but the few slackers who bought her notes? Part 1 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.